Philippines Network, Radyo Ronda, DXKT Davao, member, kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas.
This just in, President Bongbong Marcos is set to be released from isolation on Friday after recovering from COVID-19. Press Secretary Trixie Cruz Angeles says Mr. Marcos no longer has any symptoms. He previously came down with fever, cough, nasal stuffiness, and itchiness. The chief executive is now on his 6th day of isolation. More college students are expected to return to the classroom soon, but unlike the Education Department, the Commission on Higher Education will not require colleges and universities to shift to full in-person classes. Elisa Lopez has the details.
The Commission on Higher Education, or CHED, will leave it up to the heads of colleges and universities to decide which courses and classes will welcome back students for face-to-face learning.
We cannot require all schools to do face-to-face because there are schools that have been doing distance learning and flexible learning even before the pandemic.
The CHED chief says some programs needing hands-on training may return to classrooms and laboratories, but others may continue with a hybrid setup. The Commission won't set a target date for full face-to-face classes in the tertiary level, but still expects thousands of students to return to school.
I anticipate that starting the opening of this school year, there will be a very significant shift to face-to-face classes. But we cannot have face-to-face for all degree programs because the degree programs are constructed differently.
Business leaders are supportive of the reopening of schools, saying it will help address the country's education crisis, which was worsened by the COVID-19 pandemic. It will perk up economic growth too.
I think it's a good move. When the kids go to school, they have to spend for their bound, they have to take the transportation, so everything just gets re-energized, and the impact on the quality of the education of our people, of our children, I think will be improved.
The private sector gathered Wednesday their call for twin reforms that will provide healthy food and higher quality of learning for children. 3 business groups push a joint agenda to improve access for pregnant moms and poor families to provide food for their kids to prevent stunting, not by taking feeding programs from school, but to start at home.
Education has the promise of better employment, earnings, health, and quality of life. Make education and learning a priority. Invest in the lifelong learning of our people.
Both CHED and the private sector backed President Bongbong Marcos' call to review schools' curricula as they seek to address skills mismatch, or when graduates lack the proper training needed to land well-paying jobs. De Vera says study plans have been updated with a shift to the K-12 program, but still need to keep up with new technology. Melissa Lopez, CNN Philippines.
Meanwhile, the CHED lifts the 11-year order banning new public and private colleges from offering nursing programs. CHED says it reviewed the stoppage at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. The ban was imposed in 2011 because of what was seen as a gradual decline in the performance of teachers and students and an oversupply that left nursing graduates without jobs. Overcrowding has long been an issue in some public schools, and now they face the dilemma of welcoming all their students back this November while implementing COVID-19 protocols. AC Nichols has that story.
Principal Gilbert Inocencio heads one of the most populated high schools in the country. Rizal High School in Pasig City, which has received the safety seal, is among the first public schools to conduct limited face-to-face classes. But by November, the Education Department expects physical classes to resume at full capacity.
Kailangan pag-usapan yung realities eh. Okay naman yung yung mga ganyang suggested implementation of the policy na mag-pull nga face-to-face na tayo. Kaya lang different schools have different situations.
Like many other public schools in Metro Manila, overcrowding is a recurring problem in Rizal High School, and it faces the same challenge as the DepEd mandates all enrolled students to attend classes in person.
The school has over 12,000 students from grades 7 to 12. Officials say they need almost 300 classrooms to accommodate all currently enrolled. For now, though, only about 136 rooms are ready for use.
This, as a number of Rizal High's classroom buildings had been converted into COVID-19 isolation facilities due to lack of enough hospitals and other medical facilities.
Aware naman ng City Hall na we're also preparing for the opening. Pero, syempre, nandun pa rin yung idea na papaano kapag nag-surge talaga.
In the meantime, other public schools are looking at Rizal High as an example of how to hold in-person classes safely amid the threat of COVID-19. Officials from a school in Bicol made the long trip to check out the school's safety protocols. They saw improvised hand-washing facilities and separate containers for modules, among others. As for grade 10 student John Portugal, requiring everyone to attend in-person classes may lead to bigger problems.
Lalong dadami yung case ng COVID and pwedeng magkahawa-hawa, ganun po.
His peer Justine Requilias, however, is not worried as long as students keep their masks on. She says she struggles with a distance learning setup.
Katulad ko po na hindi po ako makapag-ano ng maayos sa cellphone kasi sumasakit po yung mata ko. Tas madami pong gagawin sa bahay, di po makapokus.
Some stakeholders are not so sure if the new policy is feasible, especially with another possible surge in COVID-19 cases. But for now, the DepEd is determined to make face-to-face classes at full capacity a reality before the year ends. AC Nichols, CNN Philippines.
Authorities are set to reopen a major portion of EDSA ahead of schedule. George Quiles joins us live for more details. George, why will the EDSA Kamuning southbound section reopen earlier than planned?
Pia, other than the potholes and cracks that were found in along the southbound lane, the Public Works Department did not see any other damages to that EDSA Kamuning flyover with their assessment. Now, they're eyeing to reopen that flyover on July 23 at 5 in the afternoon. If you can remember, the southbound lane of the EDSA Kamuning flyover was closed to traffic on June 25. And the initial plan was to finish the repairs within a month. And since then, Pia, this traffic situation is getting heavier in this area in Quezon City.
Tapos na po namin halos lahat yung major structures. Yung approach na lang po sa down ramp sa NEPA Q side na 2 lane ang ginagawa namin. In spite of the not very good weather condition, na-anticipate naman namin po yan since the start. Kaya nakakapagtrabaho kami even during heavy downpour.
Meanwhile, as for preparations for the face-to-face classes, LTFRB Chairperson Cheloy Garafil says they are studying the possibility of opening more routes under their Libreng Sakay program. As of now, the EDSA busway is the only remaining route under that program. On Tuesday, Garafil tried the EDSA busway system during rush hour to have a first-hand experience on the situation. She said there is a need to fix the dispatching system by deploying more buses during rush hour to avoid long lines.
Napansin ko, medyo reactive yung nagiging sistema doon. Pag meron lang nagbi-build up, saka lang magpapadala ng sasakyan. So talagang, kaya nagkakaroon ng long lines. So, kung makakaroon ng seat management system, may prepositioning na tayo ng mga vehicles even before magkaroon ng mga influx ng mga tao.
The LTFRB will also work on the route rationalization plan so that they will see the bigger picture on the availability of public transportation and see the areas where they may still open new routes. Back to you, Pia.
George, the group operating the EDSA bus carousel has claimed that drivers are not paid on time. What is the response of the LTFRB to this?
Well, Attorney Garafil was telling us earlier that she was able to talk to the members of the EDSA bus consortium and promised to pay promptly so that the services that they're offering to the public will not be affected anymore. Back to you.
George Quiles there reporting. The pandemic is nowhere near over. Those words coming from the World Health Organization as it flags new waves of infections across the globe. The WHO warns the more infectious Omicron subvariants are driving an increase in cases.
The virus is running freely and countries are not effectively managing the disease burden based on their capacity. As the virus pushes at us, we must push back. We're in a much better position than at the beginning of the pandemic. Of course, we have made good progress. We have safe and effective tools that prevent infections, hospitalizations, and deaths. However, we should not take them for granted.
The WHO reminds the public that COVID-19 vaccines are still effective at preventing severe disease and death. Coming up on Newsline, Sri Lanka's Prime Minister is now acting president after the embattled president and his wife fled the country. And Queen Elizabeth II confers the highest civilian honor for gallantry on a Filipina British nurse. You're watching CNN Philippines.
SMC, San Miguel Corporation. Bisag unsang industriya ang sudlan niini, tinguha sa SMC ang pag-uswag o paglambo sa mga Pilipino. Karon, gikan sa SMC, aniya na ang SMC Davao Cement. SMC Davao Cement, gama sa Davao para sa Mindanao. SMC Davao Cement, ato ni bay. SMC, San Miguel Corporation. Bisag unsang industriya ang sudlan niini, tinguha sa SMC ang pag-uswag o paglambo sa mga Pilipino. Karon, gikan sa SMC, aniya na ang SMC Davao Cement. SMC Davao Cement, gama sa Davao para sa Mindanao. SMC Davao Cement, ato ni bay.
Ito ang RPN, Radio Philippines Network, DXKT 1071 sa inyong mga radyo, ang Radyo Ronda sa Davao.
Philippines. In global headlines, Sri Lankan Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe has been appointed as acting president just hours after the embattled president Gotabaya Rajapaksa fled the country with his wife for the Maldives. Rajapaksa, who was supposedly to formally resign today, made the appointment, citing a law allowing the premier to take over when the president is ill or absent. Wickremesinghe, he was also expected to step down as prime minister on Wednesday. Wickremesinghe has called for a state of emergency across the crisis-hit country. He ordered defense officials to impose a curfew in the capital, Colombo, and the rest of the western province amid another round of massive protests. Back here at home, a Quezon City Court denies the request of alternative news outlet Bulatlat to unblock its website. A legal counsel of Bulatlat says the court did not see an urgent need to unblock bulatlat.com since the presiding judge and other court members were still able to access the site. Bulatlat argued the memorandum prevents them from exercising their right to publish news. It also said it is not within the power of the NTC to block websites without any court order. Bulatlat sought a stay order against the June 8 directive pushed for by former National Security Advisor Hermogenes Esperon.
ang kliyente ko po ay si retired General Esperota. Yun po ay isang bagay na inilabas din namin po sa korte na hindi na po siya opisyal ng pamahalaan.
Last month, we registered more than 60,000 unique visitors. And then since the memorandum, naging half siya, no? So there is really the direct impact. We call on National Security Advisor Clarita Carlos to resign the memo issued by the NTC.
The hearing for preliminary injunction on the case will take place August 2nd. In other news, Filipinos are divided on the new 1,000 peso polymer bills. Some are in favor of the new design. Others, who are afraid to mishandle the new bill, prefer the old banknote. Amid public confusion, a center wants to suspend the polymer note's issuance and production. Tristan Odalo reports.
Some vendors in this public market in Mandaluyong City were hesitant at first in accepting the new 1,000 peso polymer bills in their daily transactions.
Kasi po nababalita po kasi na hindi tatanggapin yung pag may tupi or may lokot po. Mas okay po siguro kung sa dati kasi po yung ngayon, ingatan po talaga Kailangan yung wallet mo yung mahaba kasi pag natupi po baka mamaya hindi natanggapin ng iba.
They believe this is for security purposes and teaches Filipinos the proper way to handle money regardless of its material.
Pwedeng ganyan lang siya. Huwag naman yung scramble. Pwedeng ganyan, pagka limawa. Di ba? Pwede naman pag namili ka kasi pag wala kang wallet. Hindi naman kasi maganda yung paggagawa May plastic siya.
Following claims made on social media, the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas or BSP clarifies and advises retailers and banks to accept folded bills. The BSP also reiterates its reminders on how to handle banknotes.
Huwag po natin masyadong i-crumple. Ganon din naman po dun sa paper banknote natin. Dinidiscourage namin ng publiko, huwag natin siya isubmerge sa chemicals o huwag po natin siyang plansahin. Bawal po siyang istipol, bawal po siyang sulatan.
Senator Coco Pimentel believes the change in monetary design is impractical. He also wants to put a stop on the production and issuance of the new polymer notes.
Sa dami ng naririnig natin na don'ts, yung mga bawal gawin, mas nag-aalala ngayon ako, are we introducing really a more durable banknote or are we just giving unnecessary burden and obligations on our people? Siguro maghinay-hinay na muna ang BSP, kasama yan sa resolution ko, ilabas ang mga reklamo. Dapat umabot sa BSP.
The lawmaker also laments the impact of the shift to polymer to local abaca producers.
High-tech polymer pero plastic pala yan, plastic. Wala na pong made in the Philippines dyan na raw material.
Pimentel says his resolution may be tackled by the Senate Committee on Banks or Economic Affairs. Tristan Odalo, CNN Philippines.
A Filipino business tycoon receives the highest order of merit in France. San Miguel Corporation President and CEO Ramon Ang was awarded the Legion of Honor by the French government for his economic contributions to Manila-Paris relations. Ang thanked France for the distinction as he vowed to strengthen efforts to boost the economy. When we come back, the PBA will look into domestic abuse allegations against one of its players. We speak to sports lawyer Mickey Ingles live. And this Filipino-British nurse who made headlines amid the global pandemic receives the highest civilian award from Queen Elizabeth II. Stay tuned.
SMC, San Miguel Corporation. Bisag unsang industriya ang sudlan niini, tinguha sa SMC ang pag-uswag o paglambo sa mga Pilipino. Karon, gikan sa SMC, aniya na ang SMC Davao Cement. SMC Davao Cement. Gama sa Davao, para sa Mindanao. SMC Davao Cement. Ato ni Bay.
Ito ang RPN, Radio Philippines Network, DXKT 1071 sa inyong mga radyo, ang Radyo Ronda sa Davao.
I wanted to start with this because Siege Nantenko had tweeted and posted about this, no? Parang let's do a little review. Can we do that, Attorney Mickey?
Okay. Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, well, can you recount those players and what the allegations were against them and what happened to those allegations and if there were any investigations?
Okay, so according to Siege's tweet, there has been like one VAUSI case per year since 2018 involving PBA players. I think the players were Mac Cardona, Halalon, Bo Belga, and now Paul Desiderio, right? What happened to these cases, I don't know because we don't have any reports on what actually happened to these players. So I don't know what the PBA did with these players because some of them are still playing. So I'm not sure if that's because they found that after the investigation nothing did happen or something was worked out, right? So I really can't answer what happened with these cases.
But,
so that's the long and short.
But would you know if there were cases filed against them or hindi na umabot sa ganoon?
I honestly don't think there were cases filed against them. At least from the news reports that I've been reading about the past cases involving PBA players.
Well, Agatha Uvero herself posted about it on social media earlier today, this morning. So it kind of took social media by storm. No? And daming reactions. What was interesting here was that she detailed all these allegations of emotional and physical abuse. And I wanted to ask you if everything that she said there, no, and there's a whole long list of them, it's a litany of supposed alleged violations. Are these violations of the Violence Against Women and Children Act or VAUSI? They are, right?
Yes, they are. Because if everyone remembers, violence against women and children, they cover any acts by an intimate person against a woman who was either his wife or former wife or with a person whom he has sexual relations or in a dating relationship with. So that covers the dating relationship between Agatha and Mr. Desiderio, right? And the acts covered by VAUSI include physical violence, sexual violence, psychological violence, and economic abuse. So the litany of alleged acts stated by Agatha in her tweet fall within physical violence and psychological abuse. So if these allegations are true, then they are clear violations of VAUSI.
They may be allegations of violations of the VAUSI. However, these are social media posts. We've been told, and we're not quite sure, no, that she had this blottered already. However, hindi pa po ito, Attorney Mickey, ang kaso, right? If she wants to take this any further, she needs to file a case, correct?
Yeah, definitely. So under VAUSI, you have actually two options whenever you are faced with abuse by your intimate partner and you're a woman. Number one, you can file for a protection order with the barangay. And alternatively, or maybe even as an addition to it, you can file a criminal case. So VAUSI is a criminal law. if Mr. Desiderio is found guilty of these acts, he will be facing jail time. But of course, that depends on Agatha if she wants to push through with filing a case in court.
People would say kasi, some people would venture to guess na pwede bang hindi na lang mag-file ng kaso, hindi ba pwedeng gobyerno na lang sampa ng kaso. Pero ang kaso, yung people of the Philippines versus so-and-so, that can only happen kung may complainant. Meaning, in this case, the woman here, Agatha, in this case, right? Kailangan siya mag-file ng kaso para maging people of the Philippines versus Paul Desiderio. Is that correct?
Well, vowsy is a public crime, so technically anyone can file for Miss Agatha. But the question is, how will the prosecution proceed if Miss Agatha doesn't want to at least participate in giving her affidavit or giving her side? So that's the rub there, right? I mean, if she wants to participate, then she can file it on her own. If she doesn't want to participate, someone else can file it for her under vowsy. But how will we get her side during trial and during?
And what is the reason why?
Right? So
what is the reason, Attorney Mickey, why women don't usually want to file a case? They will talk about it, magpo-post sa social media, and this has happened in the past. We've seen that happen. And then hindi magsasampa ng kaso.
Yeah, well, we've seen a lot of that, and it's for a number of reasons. Number one is the stigma that they might face, right? So Agatha posted about it, and immediately she got people telling her that it's not true, or people telling her that it's her fault, right? And we've seen that in a number of cases whenever a woman comes up to speak. Another reason why a woman might not want to file a case of vowsy is because of the costs. And another reason might be based on emotion. Because if you file a case of vowsy, you will have to see your abuser in court, right? You will have to face him. You will have to give testimonies against him. And some women might not want to do it and just go on their own way.
Yung binanggit mo kanina lang, Attorney Mickey, ito yung sinasabing victim shaming, right? Palaging may dahilan, kasi ikaw, kasi ganito ganyan, etc. Right?
Yes, victim shaming. Yeah.
And we should shine a light on this because, like we've already pointed that, like what has already been pointed out, ang dami nang lumalabas, lumilitaw na ganito, specifically sa PBA, pero wala naman talaga nangyayari.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if what we've seen so far since 2018 is real, then the PBA should really step in to address the situation. I mean, the PBA has released a statement that they're going to investigate, but hopefully the investigation here really pushes through and something can be seen based on the investigation. Yeah, the PBA has the grounds under its constitution and bylaws to look into misconduct by its players. Right? There's a morality clause there that mandates the players to have good moral character, to not do anything that might destroy the reputation of the game or the sport, and domestic violence does defeat.
At kailangan matuloy pa rin ang investigasyon kahit walang kaso. I mean, for some reason, biglang magsabi si Agatha Uvero na hindi na ako magsasampa ng kaso. Just in case. Kailangan tuloy pa rin yung investigasyon.
Yeah, definitely. So the investigation of the PBA and the filing of a criminal case by Agatha are totally independent. The filing of Agatha is a criminal case which involves our local courts. The investigation by the PBA will be an administrative matter handled by the rules and regulations of the PBA, so they can go separately and independently.
Thank you so much for your insights, Attorney Mickey Ingles, sports lawyer. Salamat, Mickey. In other news, a Filipino-British nurse who administered the first COVID vaccine in the world was honored by the UK's Queen Elizabeth II with the highest civilian award for gallantry. Mae Parsons received the George Cross Award representing the medical staff of the country's National Health Service. The honor recognizes, quote, acts of the greatest heroism. And that is it for now. Join me again on News.ph at 7 p.m. and on Politics as usual at 8. I'm Pia Hontiveros for Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines.
Ito ang RPN, Radio Philippines Network. DXKT 1071 sa inyong mga radyo, ang Radyo Ronda sa Davao.